Good morning, and welcome to Unfiltered, what your kids are seeing and doing online. We are excited to have Tiffany Little here with us today. Tiffany Little is a senior substance abuse prevention specialist for Fairfax County Public Schools. She has been with the SAPS program since 2018. Prior to working for FCPS, she was a substance abuse therapist working in the Adult Detention Center with incarcerated men, the mental health therapist for three state probation offices for the Department of Corrections, substance abuse therapist for the Marine Corps, and has worked with children in therapeutic day treatment programs. Her primary role with FCPS is to support the team of 22 SAPs and provide program oversight for the district. And now we'll turn it over to you, Tiffany.
Thank you. Good morning, everyone. We have a lot of content to dive into, so let's buckle up. So first, we're going to really talk about the what I would call the four dopamine hits that plague many adults. So that would be drugs, sex, money, and food. So we are going to talk about all of that within the span of 90 minutes. What I want you to think about is that these four things that you see on the screen all release dopamine. So dopamine is a neurotransmitter or chemical messenger that acts on different parts of our brain that produce a rewarding type of effect in our brain. So when people consume drugs, we get a release of dopamine. When they have sex, there's a release of dopamine, so on and so forth. And that reward effect makes us want to continue to do the behavior. So with that, I hope that you are on a laptop, desktop, or iPad today and not on your phone, because I would encourage you to try to stay focused either by taking notes with a writing pad, because of course it's going to be easier for you to retain information if you write rather than type the information. So there is a lot of content. Some of it might be new and some of it may even be shocking. But try not to be dismayed by my delivery. I've been talking about and studying these things for quite some time. And just because my delivery might be direct, or I might seem unbothered by the information, doesn't mean that you need to feel the same way. But ultimately, your goal should be, when you have a conversation with your child, to be able to maintain your composure. Because if you go into conversations with your children and you are riddled with anxiety, then that is going to come across in the conversations that you have with them. So first and foremost, our substance abuse prevention program started in 2018, so about 8 years ago. We do lots of prevention work with all grade levels. So the Virginia Department of Education mandates that all students who take a health and PE course, which would be kindergartners through 10th graders, receive substance abuse education in their health and PE classes. However, the SAPs also partner with those teachers and other teachers throughout the buildings to do prevention lessons on substance abuse. So sometimes that's going to look like a hands-on activity, like you see in the picture on the left, or it can even be something where we're teaching kids coping skills and meditation, like the picture on the right. We also do intervention work, meaning that a student is referred to us because they either use substances or they are suspected of using substances. So the substances can range. So it might be a nicotine issue that we are addressing, like the picture on the left, or it could be all the way up to someone consuming or using opioids, like what you see in the picture on the right. The picture on the right is burnt tin foil and a rolled up dollar bill. And that's typically how young people are smoking Percocets, i.e., fentanyl. So, with that, the question that I have for you all is, what is your primary responsibility as a parent? I'll let you sit with that for a second. And then my second question is, what is the primary purpose of a business? So I would assume that your primary purpose or responsibility as a parent is to nurture, guide, protect, and love. However, the primary purpose of a business is to make money. If a business isn't making money, then it's not lucrative, it's not serving its purpose. It's not a not for profit, it is not philanthropy, it is not volunteer work. The purpose of a business is to make money. So now let's hold that information and think about some of the ages that young people or people in general participate in certain activities as adults. So first, think about the fact that the brain develops from the front to the back. So follow my arrow here. So it's going to develop here, the bottom back part, and then move all the way up over here. I'm hoping that you all can see my arrow on the screen because I can see it. This bottom part over here, which is the spinal cord, that's responsible for the things that we don't have to think about, such as breathing. Thank goodness we don't have to think about taking our next breath throughout every day, right? And then as we move up here to this frontal lobe area is responsible for some of that more complex and nuanced thinking. So that's where some of our decision making happens and the things that really take effort for us to make sense of. Now, look at the age that someone can drive a car in Virginia. So, in Virginia, you only need to be 16 and 3 months, but there are some parameters, right? So, between 12 a.m. and 4 a.m., you're not allowed to drive. You can't have more than one non-familial passenger, okay? So, you can drive, but there's limits. And then even to purchase and consume nicotine, you have to be 21. In order to rent a car, you have to be 21, sometimes 25. The brain isn't fully developed, excuse me, until about 25 years old. Social media, thanks to this new mandate and bill, they're recommending or stating that you need to be 16 years old. Now, I want you to hold those ages in your head. I want you to hold the fact that the brain isn't fully developed until 25 in your head. And listen to this stat. By age two, by 2 years old, 40% of children have their own laptop. By two, almost half of all children have their own laptop, not access to a laptop, but their own device. So when we're thinking about the responsibility of a parent, those primary responsibilities that we talked about, that discipline, correction, nurturing, love, and guidance, I want you to think about something called co-regulation, attunement, or attachment. Co-regulation essentially looks like the little person that you are raising, that baby, is not able to regulate or control their own emotions. They literally look to the bigger person in their life to offer them stability and to send information of how they should respond. So that's because our nervous systems aren't designed to regulate on our own. Children are literally borrowing the stability of a larger person, an adult, a more stable nervous system, the adult, so that they can figure out how to manage their emotions. And that's because that frontal lobe isn't fully developed yet. So they have to borrow your frontal lobe as their caretaker in order to figure out how to respond in situations. So every moment that you are looking at your child offers an opportunity for connection. There's even been research that shows that small children are actually better at determining whether someone is lying or not because they look at and notice the size of the pupils and how dilated the pupils are. So when a mother interacts with her child, when the pupils become larger and they're more excited about something, then that child dials in to their mother's emotions and then learns how to regulate their own emotions. Now, the picture on the right is this bassinet called a snoo. I have a child that will be 2 in September, and there was so much marketing within my algorithm because my social media algorithm realized that I was becoming a mother thanks to all of my research online. And I came across this product called the snoo. The snoo is a bassinet that recognizes when your child is crying and it moves a bit in an attempt to soothe your child. And on the website, the snooze says, we've got sleep down to a science. Snooze special combination of swaddling, white noise, and rocking recreate the womb's soothing sensations. Together, they trigger your baby's calming reflex. That's the magical off switch for fussing and on switch for sleep that makes baby care so much easier. It claims to add 1 to 2 hours of sleep per night with constant calming, womb-like motion and sound. Every piece of technology that currently exists is simply an extension of the abilities that we already have as humans. The snoo is attempting to mimic and copy what a mother and or parent is already equipped to do. When your child cries, you are supposed to pick up your child and regulate their emotions, look at them in their eyes, not scroll on your phone while you're breastfeeding or you're doing something else to care for your child. You are supposed to be in that moment, mindfully taking in what is going on with your child. The snoo is attempting to be a technological extension of what parents do. And my guess is that the snoo and other social media platforms and other things like that are doing it because the majority of people are spending about 2+ hours on social media per day. That includes adults as well. So children are actually spending more time on social media. The average teenager actually spends about 8 hours per day on their screens. So the average person spends 2 hours and 20 minutes on social media. The average teenager spends about 8 hours on their screens per day. That's a full-time job. And if I am engaged in technology in a way that becomes a part-time or full-time job, then of course I don't have time to look at people in their eyes and have conversations with them. Of course, I don't have time to pick my child up in the middle of the night when they're crying. So I want you to think about the behaviors that we're talking about today as living on a continuum. So when it comes to drug use and addiction, we talk about the behavior existing on a continuum of use. You occasionally use a substance, a mood altering substance, a drug. Then some people move into problematic use, not all people. Most people can actually use mood altering substances without developing a problem or disorder or an addiction. And then there are some based off of biology and typically more so their environment that develop a substance use disorder or an addiction. And an addiction, simply put, is the progressive narrowing of the things that bring you pleasure. And just like substance use disorders and addiction exist on a continuum, pleasure exists on a continuum as well. So, the issue that we're having currently in our modern society is that most people are looking for pleasure and not experiencing enjoyment. And this is where I'm going to give philosophical, and for some people, it might even be spiritual. So, listen to me closely. Pleasure is fast and automatic. It's the things you do that give you a quick dopamine spike. Drugs, sex, money, food. It trains an impulse. It trains you to act fast in order to experience that dopamine spike quickly. Enjoyment, on the other hand, is more conscious. It's memorable, it's slower, it's something that you choose, you're present, you're grounded in the moment, and it's usually shared. It's usually when you're with someone else. Pleasure is usually when you're alone. Now, enjoyment does have an aspect of pleasure because there are pleasurable things that then can move into enjoyment. So if I am eating Chick-fil-A is one of my favorite fast foods. I don't consume it often, but if I am eating Chick-fil-A while I'm driving in my car, I am multitasking and I'm trying to eat while not getting messy while driving and paying attention to everything around me. So the Chick-fil-A is pleasurable, but it's only like serving one basic purpose of adding calories, giving me a bit of a dopamine hit because of the bread, the carbs, the grease, and all that. But in order for me to enjoy the Chick-fil-A, I might need to actually be sitting at a table, no phone at the table with me, with my husband and with my daughter, laughing at my daughter as she continuously dips the fry into the Chick-fil-A sauce and just eats the sauce off of the fry instead of just eating the fry, right? So it's a shared experience. Now, I want us to look at some of the history when it comes to the marketing of mood altering substances. So, OxyContin is actually a opioid drug. So, it is a prescription pain management drug. It's in the same category or classification of drugs as fentanyl, um, and other types of pain management drugs that are prescribed. So, OxyContin was first introduced and marketed. I want you to keep in mind that it was marketed. Remember, the main purpose of a business is to make money. OxyContin was marketed in 1996, and that same year they made $48 million. Now we're going to jump down to 2000, and in 2000, their sales were $1.1 billion. So from 48 million to $1.1 billion in the span of 4 years. How did that happen? Because between 1996 to 2000, they had a jump in their sales representatives. So these are their people who were going to doctors' offices and marketing OxyContin. So they had a jump in their sales reps from 318 to almost or more than double to 671. And the more that the sales reps got physicians to prescribe this drug, that sales rep got bonuses. So the more the physicians prescribed the drugs, the more bonuses the sales reps got. The more that physicians prescribed the drug, they got kickbacks as well. So in the span of 1996 to 2001, there were over 40 pain management conferences at resorts. So at these pain management conferences, the sales reps, the physicians from all across our country went to these all expenses paid resorts, i.e., vacations, and they were marketed why OxyContin is such a profound drug and everyone needs this drug to manage their pain. When actually in 2001, it was documented that oxycodone actually had no advantage over appropriate doses of other potent opioids. So there was no reason for OxyContin at the strengths and potency that they were distributing that drug to be marketed and prescribed to individuals because the opioids that were already on the market were potent enough. So they targeted the physicians who were some of the highest prescribers of opioids, and they actually offered free coupons for folks to be on this drug. So they would have a 70 to 30-day supply of free Oxycontin, which is just enough to get them hooked on it. So hold on to that. And then we move into big tobacco. This is a very infamous picture of some of the big tobacco key players who actually had to face RICO charges. So, RICO charges, RICO, RICO, the Racketeer Influence and Corrupt Organizations Act, is a federal law that targets organized criminal activity and racketeering. So, RICO charges are primarily reserved for like gangsters, mafia, folks who are moving drugs up and down from state to state across state lines. So big tobacco actually faced federal RICO charges. And what you will see in this slide are quotes from tobacco companies. So Marlboro said that they are specifically targeting folks who are 15 to 17 years old. And then you have Big Tobacco, who says the base of our business is the high school student. The foundation where we get the majority of our money is the high school student. And then you have in the third line that today's teenager is tomorrow's potential regular customer. And that in the fourth line, they are developing them into a young adult franchise. So when they see people who are hooked on these substances, they see dollar signs. So hold on to that. Now we're going to move into gambling disorder. So, gambling disorder is actually the only behavioral addiction that exists in the DSM. The DSM is the manual that is used to give people their mental health and substance use disorders or diagnoses. Anyone that is going and seeing a therapist will receive a diagnosis because insurance will not pay you without a diagnosis and they need something to treat. So, gambling disorder is the actual only behavioral disorder that exists in the DSM. You're not going to see internet addiction. You're not going to see shopping addiction. You're not going to see sex addiction. Only gambling disorder. Uh, that doesn't mean that the other addictions, if you will, don't exist. It's just that gambling disorder is the one that is most vetted by data. So, when it comes to youth gambling behavior globally, 17.9% of youth under 18 have gambled in the last year. An estimated 10.3% of youth under 18 had gambled online in the past 12 months globally. Now, what we're looking at now with youth gambling is micro betting. So, micro betting is the fact that it only takes one tap of the finger in order to bet. You know how when you're shopping online and you have the items that you want to purchase in your cart, and then when you get to that final stage to check out of your cart, a pop-up will come up or a suggested item will come up and it says, just click this button and it'll be dropped right into your cart. You don't have to go to the original page of that blouse. All you have to do is click that button and it's automatically added in your cart. That's set up intentionally because there is a lower threshold of you actually purchasing the item. So the same is what they use when it comes to betting. If I only make it so that you only have to tap one time, that increases the likelihood that you will actually bet, making it more automatic. Now, in Virginia, online sports betting, you have to be 21 in order to bet. But I have already heard from some of our team members that some young people are getting their allowances deposited into these sports betting websites by their parents. So parents are putting children's allowances into sports betting websites so that the kids can gamble. So there is always a workaround. And I have something going on in the chat. I'm hearing that you all can't read the slides.
Yes, Tiffany, can we put it then the view on the actual presentation? We have the side by side and but it's becoming harder.
Okay, so, okay, gotcha. Hold on. I'll just change my layout. Is that better? Now you can just see the content, right?
Yes, thank you.
You're welcome. I'm glad I opened that up. Okay, so then there are things called prediction markets. So, prediction markets, also known as betting markets, information, decision, idea, or event derivatives, they're just disguised gambling platforms. Oh, you know what? I forgot to mention this. Let's go back here. So, I put this little picture here. Why am I drawing a blank? But like when kids go to like Dave and Buster's or like Chuck E. Cheese and whatnot, this I would consider to be similar to gambling. You know, it's the claw machine where you insert a token and then you risk something that is of value to you. So that token with the hopes that you are going to get something that is worth more or more exciting for you. So I put in my token, I use the claw, and I'm hoping that I'm going to get the panda bear that I want. That I would say as a small introduction to gambling. So now prediction markets. So prediction markets, some of the main prediction markets out there are called call sheet and poly market. And you could literally bet on anything. So these were screenshots that I took. So this is the World Cup. So they were betting or predicting who they thought was going to win the World Cup. And then it even goes into politics. There was one where I saw where there was a prediction market bet on like when boots would be on the ground in Iran. And you have the same thing here. So when would the US Iran final nuclear deal be reached? And
This incident happened
Who's
at the park because
uncomfortable?
someone felt uncomfortable.
Who's uncomfortable, sir? We're fine with them being here. Are you uncomfortable with them being here?
This incident happened
Who's
at the park because
uncomfortable?
so what I would say about that is that we have something called the collapse of adult solidarity. And a lot of kids are online because the community is no longer looking out for the community anymore. So in that video, you have kids who are outside at a park during the summertime and they were just sitting down. But someone called the police on those children because they were outside at the park and they looked suspicious, whatever that might allegedly look like. And instead of that person just allowing those children who are children minors to be outside, they call the police on them because we don't have adults looking out for adults anymore. There's no more community, there's no more village of folks looking out for people. And when children don't have places that they can go and be outside, then of course they're going to be on their devices in their home. And it's much safer actually to be outside than to be online. When it comes to gaming, a lot of gaming actually mimics gambling as well. So there are something called loot boxes that are in games, and those loot boxes are like chests, if you will, and the gamer doesn't know what's going to be in the chest. So the gamer is playing the game, and there's an opportunity for them to open the chest, but most of the time you have to pay in order to open up the chest. You don't know what's going to be in it, so you don't know what your reward is going to be, but you're risking something, money, by paying to open the chest with the hopes that it's going to be something that enhances your character or that gets you farther along in the game. And this is a screenshot of Reddit post where someone was actually looking for a game with a lot of loot chests because they were looking for that dopamine hit. So, problematic gaming, just looking at Reddit, if you ever want to do like some research of what's going on in a particular community, I highly suggest looking at Reddit. So, loot boxes are a mechanic in which you purchase a grab bag of game items and or unlockables. So you don't know what's in it until you open it, and you can't open it without buying it. Okay. And at the bottom, EA, I can't remember what it stands for, but it's the company that makes the sports video games, is trying to dodge the issue of not being able to have loot boxes by relabeling them as surprise boxes. So just like certain sites like Call She and Polymarket, those prediction websites aren't labeled as betting or gambling platforms. They're labeled as prediction markets. So it sounds a bit more white collar. It's not technically gambling. So they could get away with having it in certain states where online sports betting isn't legal. So Roblox is another way that some folks are, or some kids are gambling.
Сигма, сигма бой, сигма бой. Каждая девчонка хочет танцевать с тобой. Сигма бой, сигма бой, сигма бой. Я такая вся, что добиваться будешь год. Сигма, сигма бой, сигма бой, сигма бой. Каждая девчонка хочет танцевать с тобой. Сигма, сигма бой, сигма бой, сигма бой. И я такая вся, что добиваться будешь год. Сигма, сигма бой, сигма бой, сигма бой.
Okay. So Roblox, which is often used by young children, is this game. It reminds me of Sims when I was a kid, but you can create a virtual environment and you could go play in virtual environments. That virtual environment that you just saw was actually supposed to be for a 10-year-old, but when you looked at it at the end, those two virtual characters were engaging in some type of sexual activity. The female character had on lace, some like thigh-high boots, and they were actually in a club, and then there was a bed right there. So even games that are designed for children can easily veer off into being adult-like content. And Roblox is actually has those like built-in loot boxes, if you will, as well, because you need money in order to enhance your character. So if I want my avatar to wear a blue wig, then I might need my mom to give me such a tongue twister. I might need my mom to give me Roblox money to put on the game so that I can buy that hair to enhance my character. So in casinos, the slot machines actually account for approximately 70% of the floor space. And when it came to the design of social media, the apps where you swipe, it actually was built to mimic the slot machine. So the original version of the slot machine, you take the handle, the bar, and you pull it down. That's the same way that we refresh our screen when we open up Instagram Reels or we open up Instagram in general or TikTok. Just one finger swipe. So remember, with micro betting, it only takes one finger to tap to make a bet. The same thing is true when it comes to the casino. One pull, my gambling is complete. The same thing is true when it comes to social media, refreshing the page, one swipe, and then it's refreshed. And when we refresh the page and we're looking for new content, what we're looking for is a spike in dopamine. We're looking for something new, something exciting. And the thing about social media, going back to attachment, is that when a young person or people in general on social media post something, we are hoping that people resonate, enjoy, like, experience pleasure out of what we post. So we're hoping for likes when we're on a dating app. We're hoping for matches. We're hoping for retweets, reposts, and shares because when someone likes, matches, retweets, or reposts something, it's a quick surrogate of true attachment experiences. So instead of engaging with someone face to face or via FaceTime and having an enjoyable conversation, we are hoping that technology is now the surrogate for enjoyment, for our connection. So social media is a fake version of connection. And typically people are going online for what they get to do, and then they end up staying for who they get to be. So going online, gaming in this fantasy world, or being on social media, for some folks, they enjoy what they get to do up there, but they really decide to stay for who they get to be. They get to create a version of themselves, maybe an ideal or idyllic version of themselves or space or environment. Porn, gaming, gambling, and social media can really just all tap into like that compelling archetypal element of fantasy. I remember being in undergrad and that was a while ago. One of my classmates said that life is a drag show. And what she meant by that was we're all performing in some way. We're all interacting with people in a way that we hope gets us liked. But social media gaming actually take that and multiply it. So, some of the risk factors that contribute to online addictions would be ADHD, impulsivity, anxiety, and being a young in age when you first use it. Access, most of us have a internet connected device. Most people do not have a flip phone or a dumb phone or dummy phone. The picture on the right is a nicotine vape device. That nicotine vape device is actually Bluetooth enabled and touchscreen, and it mirrors your phone. So for $20, you can get a nicotine vape that is also connected to your phone so that you can answer your WhatsApp messages and you can go onto social media. And it actually has the nerve to have a built-in fitness tracker because, of course, people who are vaping nicotine and who also are scrolling on their phone, right? Constantly getting the dopamine hit of using nicotine and being on social media also want to track their fitness. And one of the things that makes an online addiction or internet-based addiction a risk factor for some people is that anonymity. So the anonymity of being able to gamble online versus going in person. And then you have disinhibition, which is the tendency of people to experience a dramatic loosening of inhibitions on the internet, meaning they are engaging with people online in ways that they usually wouldn't in person. So typically with girls, this looks like being mean and callous towards one another and being highly judgmental. For boys, it might look like aggression and saying misogynistic things that they usually wouldn't say in person.
Holy cow. God, that is a big burger.
It started when the McDonald's CEO took a bite to promote the fast food chain's latest burger, the Big Arch.
I don't even know how to attack it. All right, the moment of truth. That is so good.
That's all it took. One tiny bite. The reaction on social media has been, well, kind of mocking.
Okay, so in that video, I'm highlighting this video that went viral on social media, and I thought that it was hilarious. That was the CEO of McDonald's taking the teeny tiniest bite of a burger, and he called it a product. And the product that he was consuming, obviously, was something that he doesn't consume often. Okay, so then I want you to think about technology. Most of the CEOs and creators of these tech platforms don't even send their children to schools that use tech. They send their children, their students, to the school called the Waldorf School. There are a few throughout the nation, highly expensive private school, and they are no tech and then very low tech in high school. So they don't even consume the product that they market. Snapchat had this information that was released in September 20, excuse me, Snapchat came out in the App Store in September 2011. And they said in 2012 that peak activity occurred during the school day and dipped on the weekends. So, what they did was they ended up marketing to social media influencers to encourage other students to use during the school day and sent them notifications during the school day so that they could open up their app and use the app more often, i.e., consume the product more often, i.e., get more dopamine hits throughout the day to get kids addicted. Girls actually tend to spend their time on the apps and websites that are more picture sharing. So the picture sharing sites consume the majority of their time. So Snapchat, Instagram, and Pinterest. Boys are on those same platforms, but they are also on YouTube and Reddit. And we'll get to some of that information later on too. And the thing about those picture sharing apps is that because it's like we're all in this drag show of being performative, is that the girls are performing perfection. And that performance of wanting to show up as perfect can lead to anxiety and disordered eating. So when you are constantly online, you might be using filters to clear up some imperfections that you see in yourself because you see that other people appear to be perfect online. You might try to use apps that contour your body or your face a little bit more. So that's what we're looking at when you see someone spending upwards of 5 and 8 hours on social media, they're then going to absorb that. You can't just look at something and not absorb it, especially when you're spending a significant amount of your time online like that, right? So they're absorbing this information and then attempting to mimic it. So this is a slide that shows you some quotes from TikTok, and it's one of their internal documents. So they recognize that their product, TikTok, is highly coercive and that the features limit user agency, i.e., the ability to log off when you want to log off, the ability to set limits for yourself, because again, that frontal lobe isn't fully developed, and that they also admitted that young users have minimal ability to self-regulate and that they lacked executive control function, that frontal part of the brain. So TikTok ended up partnering with the National PTA because, of course, the base of my business, just like Big Tobacco, is the high school student. So let's give the PTA money. So they gave the PTA $3 million to host events. These are quotes from Instagram's internal document. They said Instagram needs to build deeper experiences for students. If we don't, another app may disrupt us in a few years by becoming more popular than Instagram for high school and college age students because the base of their business is the high school student, just like Big Tobacco. And the purpose of a business is to make money. Your attention, known as the attention economy, is how they get their money. Your attention being on their websites and swiping is how they get their money because they have people who pay big money to post ads on those platforms. So now we are a little bit more than halfway through. Do you all have any questions? I'll mute my mic. And it's questions about what we have discussed so far, not anything that might be coming up a little later.
Hello? Yeah, hi. I
Yes.
just wanted to say thank you. This was really, the way you have been sharing the information has been really easy to follow along and also thought-provoking. But my question was that I might have to leave a little early. Would you be able to share the slides if I missed the rest?
Hi, that information was shared in the beginning. The webinar is going to be posted on YouTube. I'm not sharing the slides, but the resources with hyperlinks will be shared as well. So the slides and this entire webinar will be posted on YouTube, which you'll receive a link for at the end.
Thank you.
Do we have any questions about the content so far?
We do have a question in the Q&A that says, how does AI fit into this? Thank you for the great information.
You're welcome. That is actually going to be in a separate webinar. AI, I don't want to dive too much into it. AI is an extension of our human capabilities. Humans are meant to conceptualize, think, and process information. AI is only as good as the humans who create it. So it's only as positive as the humans who create it, and it's only as negative as the humans create it to be. From the little bit of research, and by little, I mean I've done a bit, but I'm no expert. From the little bit of research that I've seen, a lot of kids are already using AI. Most kids are already using AI. I think the stat is 1 in 8 adolescents are using AI, like ChatGPT, as a therapist. That's something that we need to pay attention to because AI and chatbots are sycophantic. Sycophantic meaning that they're overly affirmative. Yes, Tiffany, that's such a good idea. Your feelings are so valid. That person should have said that to you. Your mom needs to be more reasonable. It's meant to agree with you. There's a separate webinar for that. I'll mention it later. Any other questions?
We have two more in the Q&A. The first one, why public schools don't apply the same approach as Waldorf schools. Preschoolers are given their own tablets to play games in pre-K.
FCPS rolled out some new regulations when it comes to screens, and I mentioned that at the end.
In the second question, it says, understanding the addictiveness of apps like TikTok, etc., how do we limit kids from using it when most kids and even teachers are using it as communication tools?
Now, I'm going to get to that later on. So I'm giving you the basis of the foundational education, and then I'm going to roll into what you all should do. And that was the last question, right?
That was, yeah, you can keep going.
Okay, cool. All right. All right. So, speaking of access to technology, with my job title, I get more access to things online than other employees, and of course, more than students. And I was trying to find information on youth porn engagement, not youth being in porn, but just researching their behavior when it came to viewing pornography, pornographic content. And I could not get anything on my work laptop. And I was like, great. Now I am on IT's list of employees who are doing inappropriate things. So I had to go home and use my personal computer to research youth engaging in pornographic material. So now the FBI is probably watching me now. But with that, we have higher rates of porn addiction, again, because it's more accessible. It's on our phone, it's more affordable, it's free, and it's anonymous. All I have to do is log in. I don't have to go to some red light district and buy a magazine or get a subscription to a VHS tape or like that, or things like that anymore. So the world's largest site, the world's largest porn site actually has 800 searches per second and 28.5 billion annual visits. So, porn is a non relational way of having sex. It is the technological extension of the enjoyable experience of sex. So porn is pleasure, engaging in consensual sex between two consenting people is enjoyment. So those who gain or scroll are engaging in some type of arousing behavior. So we're getting that dopamine spike. So usually these people are doing this in the daytime, right? We're gaming, we're swiping, we're doing all the things, we're getting up, we're feeling stimulated. And then these same people may masturbate at night in an attempt to fall asleep. So they are attempting to relax themselves. So the same could be true for mood altering substances. Some people use stimulant drugs like caffeine, coffee, tea, those caffeinated drinks to wake themselves up, arousing. And then they might use a different mood altering substance, such as wine or some type of alcoholic beverage or THC, in order to relax and fall asleep. Now, when it comes to porn, there was this study that came out in the 1980s. And in that study, there were two groups. So there was one group that viewed pornographic material for 6 weeks. And then there was another group that watched ordinary movies and TV shows for 6 weeks. And that was prior to porn being on our phone, because this was in the 80s. And what they saw after just 6 weeks were that male subjects became more callous towards women. They viewed rape as being less serious. They were more accepting of cheating on your partner. They valued marriage less, and they didn't even want to have girls as children anymore. So what you have is their tolerance building up and their tolerance increasing, just like tolerance increases when someone uses drugs over time. So because they are viewing content between, because they are viewing sex in a pleasurable way, in a technological type of way, their tolerance builds up because they are receiving that pleasure quicker. It takes less effort to pleasure yourself via pornographic material than to actually engage with someone and build up a relationship and then ask for consent and do all of these things.
Fondling women's hair on the metro. So he would be sitting behind them on the metro and just playing with their hair so that non consensual, somewhat sexual activity he felt was okay for him to do. So now we're going to move into something called the manosphere. So the manosphere is an umbrella term for online communities, and they're marketed, if you will, as providing support for men who are struggling. So for men's issues like dating, fitness, and fatherhood. But more often than not, they are promoting harmful advice and attitudes. And what you end up seeing is that the folks who get absorbed into the manosphere are typically already vulnerable in some type of way because they're lonely or some other adversity that they might be experiencing. And then they see the manosphere as being a sense of community. And then that community ends up fueling aggression. So you have this coded language that they use. So I want you to pay attention when you are online or when you're out or even listening to your children converse if they are using some of this coded language. So one is called the incel. So an incel is involuntarily celibate. So they believe that men are entitled to sex, entitled, and that women purposefully deprive them of it. So when you think that you are entitled to sex and that women purposefully deprive you of sex, that then means that it's okay for you to rape or sexually assault women. And that is a core ideology of the manosphere. And it's, of course, extremist in nature. And a lot of incels, excuse me, not a lot of incels, a lot of mass murders have been linked to the incel community. So Chad is one example. So Chad is the archetype of an alpha male. So this is going to be your seemingly strong, attractive, or sexually successful male. So incels do not like Chads because Chads get the Stacys. So the Stacys are the idealized, highly attractive woman that is unattainable to the incel. So an incel might actually be aggressive towards Stacey's, or the incels that then commit mass violence and attacks might actually target Stacey's. And there was a mass murderer, a shooter who actually did that. So one example is this guy called Clavicular. So he is steeped into the manosphere. So he's from New Jersey. He started using testosterone in high school because he wanted to improve his physique. He believes that he is on the autism spectrum. I do not believe that he has been formally diagnosed. He's 20 years old and he is a live streamer. So the way that he makes his money is online. He makes about $100,000 per month live streaming. He is a looks maxer, and looks maxing is a type of incel that attempts to increase their sexual attractiveness through exercise, surgery, and other type of pseudo scientific practices. So clavicular and other looks maxers actually have this process called bone smashing. And it sounds like exactly what it is. So they take like a hammer or some other type of hard not substance, some other type of hard item like a hammer, and they beat on their face. And they are attempting to chisel their face because of some pseudoscientific practice that says if you can create tiny fractures in your bones, then your bones will rebuild itself and you'll have a more chiseled look in your face. Pseudoscience. They obsess over numbers. They obsess over status. Clavicular got his name because of the way that his clavicle looks. He can tell you the exact measurement of his clavicle because for him, the way that he looks, which really looks maxing is a form of disordered eating or an eating disorder, the way that he looks is a signal for other men and how valuable he is. He also uses meth and Adderall, methamphetamine. And I believe that he uses those two drugs, which happen to be stimulant drugs, because stimulant drugs reduce your appetite. And if a looks maxer is obsessed with his looks, then he's not going to want to gain weight. Okay. So he's going to use a stimulant drug that reduces his appetite so that he's not using a drug like alcohol, which is empty calories, or a drug like cannabis, THC, which gives you the munchies and makes you want to eat junk food.
Tiffany, are we supposed to be hearing the video?
In that video, Clavicular was live streaming in Miami, I think it was, and he actually experienced an overdose while he was live streaming. So you see him with two of his friends, and they're out at a bar, and his friend sees him going in and out of consciousness. And his friend is like, "You good? You good?" And then his friend says, "Do you need an Addy? You need an Addy?" An Adderall, i.e., a stimulant drug, because there is this myth in the drug using community where if people are overdosing, then if you give them a stimulant drug, it'll wake them back up, but really you're just putting more drugs in their system. So his friend is saying, do you need an Addy? Do you need an Addy? Because do you need to be resuscitated via another drug? So now I want you to take a second and think of your top 5. It could be 3, it could be 5 Your top 5 happiest, most satisfying times of your life. So, what was it about each event that made it so good? What were you doing each time? Think about your feelings at the time. Where did they come from? Top 5 happiest, most satisfying times of your life. And then I want you to think about your top 5 worst, most unhappy times of your life. So, what made them so bad? Who were you with at the time? And how were you feeling? And where did the feelings come from? Sorry, I'm trained as a therapist, so part of that role means that you have to get uncomfortable in safe spaces. Hopefully, where you are is a safe space for you. Now, the common thread throughout your best of times is likely that you were with other people. Food was probably involved. You were with some of your favorite people, your family, your close friends. Food was involved as part of the celebration. And then your worst of times were probably when you felt lonely or you actually were lonely and alone. And it probably involved some type of grief or loss. So, pleasure and enjoyment. We're going to skip that in the interest of time and move into our dopamine reset. So, just like when someone experiences a substance use disorder and they need to go to detox, a detox might be necessary for an internet-based addiction as well. So someone might have to come off of social media. Now, if someone is in a community that they can only find online, a safe community, like the LGBTQ community, someone feels alone because of their gender or sexual identity, they might have a community online that's supportive of them. I wouldn't say to cut your child off immediately, right? Or prematurely, but we might need to reduce their use or the type of screen that they're using. So we might need to reduce or remove social media. We might need to reduce or remove the gaming. And you're not going to remove the behavior without having a good replacement for it. Because why would I get rid of something that brings me pleasure and not have something to fill that gap and meet that need that is then going to bring me enjoyment? Otherwise, you're just going to experience a relapse. Okay. So the picture on the right, you're going to see what is like the wheel of life. So you want everything to be at a 10. So you want your business, your career, your education, your family relationships, your physical environment, your romance, family and friends, health, all of that to be at a 10, ideally, right? But some things are going to be lower. Some things are going to be higher. Now, when everything is at a 10, then that wheel turns smoothly. When something's at a 0 and something's at a 5 and one thing's at a 10, that's a clunky wheel. It's not moving through life smoothly. So the goal is to take small steps to get everything at a 10 as much as you can. Now, the thing about internet addiction or internet-based addictions is that sometimes the symptoms will mimic ADHD. And even sometimes it will mimic autism spectrum disorder. It can. So you want to practice abstinence. So if you say that your child needs to reduce their screen time, then you probably need to do the same thing as well. Because it's a system, a family system where everyone is encouraging everyone to participate and engage in healthy behavior. It's not just the identified person who has the alleged problem within the household. So 3 weeks of abstinence may work for a younger child because they haven't used technology as much as older children, whereas 90 days might actually be more appropriate for older children. So now let's go through this list. Do you? So do you use screens upon waking? So as soon as you open your eyes, and the last thing that you do before you go to bed. Do you use screens while eating and during sex? Do you have difficulty not checking your phone while driving? Picking up your phone at every stoplight when you get bored, when you're stuck in traffic? Do you pick up your phone even though you didn't get a notification because you just thought that you heard it? You thought that you heard your phone buzz. The average person picks up their phone close to 200 times a day. That's a lot of checking behavior. For those of you all who have had children, you're familiar with phantom cries. When I had my daughter, I would be in the shower and I would think that I heard her cry, but she was knocked out sleeping in her bassinet or in her crib. Those are phantom cries. The same thing happens with our cell phone use. Did I hear my phone ring? Maybe I missed a notification. Same thing. These social media companies and these apps were built to hijack our brain. What you end up doing by picking up your phone and using it throughout the day and every activity is you are creating a layer of stimulation that keeps you from being in your body. You're avoiding something. If you can't wash the dishes, if you can't be in your house without your earbuds in, without music playing, if you can't drive to the grocery store without turning on the radio, you are avoiding something. Typically, most people are attempting to avoid something painful. And by painful, I don't mean that it has to be particularly distressing or traumatic, because even boredom can be experienced as pain. But you're avoiding something that is going to pop up in your brain when it's just you by yourself in solitude. Parent use is the greatest or strongest predictor of adolescent screen time use. So if you are trying to get your kid to reduce their screen time, then you need to do the same thing. So the radical interventions aren't that radical. You can go for a walk, be outside, or as the young kids say, go touch grass. You can go to bed early or have a tech-free bedroom. Instead of using your cell phone as an alarm clock, you might use an actual alarm clock because you're trying to avoid picking up your phone and using social media within that first hour of the day. You might actually have to go online and purchase that cell phone lock box to lock your phone up so that you can't use it. You might need to have a tech-free mealtime or tech-free dinner with your family. No phones are allowed at the table. You might meditate, you might pray, you might journal, you might read. Doing tech-free things. You are going to need to practice solitude. So solitude is different from loneliness and different from being alone. Loneliness is the absence of the connection that you desire. Alone is a neutral state of people being absent, but you don't really feel any way about it. It's just neutral. Solitude is I am getting pleasure from being by myself. I am taking care of myself. Solitude aids in problem solving. It increases creativity. It increases emotional regulation. And I believe that a lot of people cannot regulate their emotions because they are constantly stimulated by our normal everyday activity, by being online, by using multiple screens, by not being able to drive in your car without the radio, by always listening to something, and by multitasking. So these are some of the protocols that I recommend. When it comes to sleep, no phone or screens 1 hour before sleep. Go for an after dinner walk, read, cut off caffeine 10 hours before a bed, no screens in the bedroom, no TVs, no cell phones, no laptops, no working in the bed. In the morning, exercise first thing in the morning so that you could get that natural dopamine spike as the sun rises. No phone or screens 1 hour upon waking, and use an alarm clock. When it comes to smartphones, no smartphone until 14. No social media until 16. Phone-free schools, which FCPS is moving towards, and more free play and responsibility in the real world. Let your kids go outside and play. It's actually much safer for them to play outside now than years ago. And then do a digital declutter. Remove distracting technologies from your life for a month. Delete those apps. You don't need it. It's not helping you survive. Well, how will I know how my cousin's baby is doing? My cousin just had a baby. How will I be able to keep up with this friend and blah, blah, blah? Call them, FaceTime them, go visit. That is enjoyable. Looking at what people are doing in their lives on social media is pleasurable. It's not enjoyable. Use that new time that you have practice during your declutter to actually engage in high quality leisure time. And then slowly reintroduce technologies into your life. So I'm not saying that you need to get rid of all your social media apps and all of your gaming, right? But slowly reintroduce things and figure out, okay, like what is actually enjoyable for me? What actually is moving me towards who I want to be? So 4 tips for social media use. Developing brains are vulnerable to specific social media features. We've talked about that. Monitor and discuss your child's social media use. Model healthy social media use yourself, since you are the greatest predictor of the way that your child engages with social media. And then watch for problematic social media use. In the resources section, I have a hyperlink for how you can check your screen time if you don't know how to do it on your iPhone. And this is what's going on in FCPS. So Virginia law, effective July 1 of this year, all schools in the state must follow a bell-to-bell phone-free policy. FCPS's current cell phone policy is already bell-to-bell for elementary and middle school students, but our high school students are currently permitted to use their devices during lunchtime in designated lunch spaces. So this new Virginia law permits exceptions for students with an IEP or 504 plan or individualized healthcare plan or diabetes medical management plan or limited English proficiency. But going forward, it is bell to bell, no phones, i.e. no phones during passing periods, no phones during lunch. The FCPS SRNR, the Student Rights and Responsibilities Handbook, discusses digital citizenship in the beginning of the year. And then FCPS, well, it's not FCPS affiliated, but it's a group of parents or FCPS parents who have banded together to advocate for intentional tech use. And then we have some upcoming webinars coming up. I know someone asked about AI that will be discussed in these webinars. So September 18th, we have the digital wellness and cyber threat indicators. And then September 25th, we have navigating the digital age, creating digital balance as a family. And then these are resources that you all will get about everything that we've discussed today. Books that I recommend that I have read. These books discuss everything that we've talked about today. If you don't read anything else, I highly suggest The Anxious Generation. And then YouTube videos about the books if you prefer a video type of format over long form reading.